get started. So we're gonna go over 30, 60, 90, just because most of you are new agents. And I thought that would probably be a good start, and then we're only gonna go over 30 today, and then kind of take it in sections. And then if you guys have questions, you can stop me and ask, and I'll see how good of a job I can do at answering them. So this is basically your game plan when you start a career with KW to become a successful agent. And if you treat it like a job, you'll be more successful. If you treat it like it's something part-time, then of course it probably won't get you to the goals that you're looking for. So kind of the way that we measure it is by obviously how many units you're selling, because I don't know how else to measure your success in a real estate business. It's usually based by transactions, I guess. Any thoughts there? You guys felt the same way? Okay. So the key to this is just being specific on your goals, because a lot of people say, okay, I want to sell 24 units. Okay, so what's it going to take to sell 24 units? At least 2 units a month, but we know in certain months you may not hit that. December, January, those months are always a little lean because it's holiday season, sometimes even November. So you want to make sure that maybe in July, when we're the busiest, you're doing 3 or 4 or 5 to kind of make up for the slow months. Once your business gets started and you're really consistent, you won't have those fluctuations anymore. You'll consistently sell 10 a month or 12 a month or whatever your goal is. So part of that is being specific on your goals. And when we're talking about that, that's this GCI calculator that is in the backdoor Keller Williams. So you could go to your one login. It looks like this. And then you just go to Career Growth Initiative. And then your calculator's right there.
Yeah, it's not doing
Oh, I wonder
what
how
you're
come it's
doing.
not. Well, no wonder you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy. This is where you can track your goal setting. And a lot of times, this starts with the kind of income you want to make. So if you, let's see. If you hit set my goal, and then this walks you right through it. Like, what do you want to make as a profit every year? So do you want to make $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, $100,000 a year? This is where you would put in that number, and then it already calculates your tax commitment to our government.
Nicely said.
Mm-hmm. And then it'll put in your royalty, and then your company dollar, which would be 18 in here. So a total of 21. And then you put in your monthly expenses. Obviously, our expenses are much higher than most people because we have a whole staff. You guys aren't going to do that. And what we're finding out is that new agents aren't making any kind of budget for marketing. I mean, nobody starts a new business without marketing, so you have to have some kind of budget to do that, and that could be door knockers, signs, farming, like if you want to do postcards, even just open house flyers and things like that. That's all marketing. And my suggestion when you're getting started in this business is have a business credit card or debit card, whatever you want to use, and then your personal. And everything that's business related, put on your business card, because when you're first getting started, it's easy to say, okay, that was only 2 or 3 things this month. When you get super busy, it will be very hard for you. It's just an accounting nightmare. And take it from me, I've done everything backwards. So I'm trying to have you guys do it right the first time. So just apply for a credit card and just pay it off every month, and be diligent about that.
Now, are you an LLC?
I just became an LLC. So when I was first started, I did a sole proprietorship. Probably looking back, I would have done an LLC again, just because of the liability going into it. So, but when I first got into it, we weren't that busy, so I don't think it was as important as it is now. So I would definitely do an LLC and talk to your attorney, but my attorney just said it's more protection so that they're not coming after your house that your family lives in if something happens, which we hope we don't. And then we have our E&O insurance too, but I would start out with an LLC. So then you would just go in and put your monthly expenses, so that would be your office bill, your cards, any kind of marketing, fuel. I mean, those things are all expenses, and you just forget that, you know, insurance, car insurance, O&E insurance, things like that. So you would just put in your expenses for the month, and then, let's see if this is gonna go down. And then salary additional means, like if you had a salary coming in, which we'll put no salary. That would be like if you were working as a buyer's agent. So some mega agents I know pay their buyer's agent a salary plus a commission just to kind of get you going in the business, and then usually that drops off after the first year or after a certain number of transactions. So everybody sets their teams up a little bit differently. And then what you should do is on this commission, it says 3%. My recommendation would be probably closer to 2.8. And then whatever your splits are. And then an average home sales price. So 214 seems a little high in this market. 214 would be more if you were just focused on a certain area and you knew that that was an average. So like with you, Lorraine, you've done enough. You should be able to kind of know what your average sale is, and that's the number I would use.
Okay.
Because it'll increase over the years, and then when you change your goal, so it'll change too. But you'll kind of know where your specialty's at. And then the conversion rating, so listings taken and close and appointments to listings. So nobody does 100%. I'd love to say I did 100% too, but it doesn't happen. Mine is probably close to 95. I'd say most of the ones I go on I get, but I have lost listings before to other agents. Sometimes they're just calling me to see if their first agent's number was right. And then conversions rates for listings, appointments to listings taken. And the conversion rate on there we have is 90%. With everything that we put in, then over here it's gonna have the goals, the closing, so it's just gonna tell you how many listings you have to take. Okay, so then will break you down to achieve your goal, what you need to do. So you're gonna have to have 26 closings a year, and then 3 closings, either a listing or a buyer per month. So what I do is if you're not making that goal every month, you gotta go back and readjust. So let's say you only close 2, then you know next month you either have to close 4 or you're off. So it's a great way to really sit down every month and see how you're doing against the goal that you've set. Obviously, this is gonna fluctuate a little depending on your home price and things like that, but it gives you a good idea of what you're gonna need. And then listings taken, you're gonna need at least 14 listings, so that's over 1 a month. So you know, if you're not doing that, then you might wanna start trying to pick up some listings. And then you're gonna need, to achieve 14 listings, you're gonna have to have 16 appointments. And these are our goals, so you should adjust yours accordingly. Cause how do you do, Lorraine? How many do you, if you go on an appointment, how many do you convert?
I'm not the numbers person.
I'm not either.
I know, I go in, I do the best I can. If I get it, I just move on to.
So you don't keep track of that?
Not yet, I'm too busy, it's like.
Yeah. So what I do is I get a book out. I would try and keep track of it because your conversion rate, the busier you get, is gonna be a big deal.
I know.
So if you're only converting 1 out of 4, then you know you need 8 listing appointments to get 2 listings.
Okay.
So your conversion rate is really important. And Sabrina does all of ours on Google Sheets, so it's really easy to do that. So you just put in the name, the appointment, and then whether you got the listing or not. And then you could kind of see how you're doing.
And then how do you, like, when you're working with someone who, you're doing all the CMAs and they have multiple properties but waiting for divorce situation, so you go on that and you hopefully get all 5 listings,
Yeah,
you know, but, so that is.
I would wait it out.
Now, or?
I would put them by address. So I'd
Oh,
put
okay.
their name, and then I'd put the 5 addresses, and then as you list, check, and as you don't list, because then you can kind of see, and then in your mind, you could say, okay, I went on 1 listing appointment,
Okay, right.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
But then you can see how your numbers are
And you
working.
tally it every month?
Yeah,
Because, you know, that could really kind of change,
See,
right?
that's where I get so
But you
confused.
tally it every month, or how
Yeah.
often do you tally it?
yeah, we have a running sheet, so
Okay.
I kind of I like to look at the big picture of everything. It's very hard for me to look at little sections. I like, okay, if we went on 10 listing appointments and we got 8, okay, why didn't we get the other 2? What could we have done better, or did they already have an agent and they were just looking for a number? So I try and look at the big picture instead of the little, because sometimes some months are gonna be a lot better than other months, and, you know, we all lose deals and get deals and that kind of thing. So the more,
And then all of a sudden
yeah, and the more you kind of take care of those numbers, man, you can really see the big picture of what's going on. And in the future, I'll help you when you get your assistant to, honestly, when you're a new agent is when you should start all of your, lists and, all of your, how you want things tracked, because it's so hard to create it when you get really busy.
Okay.
So if you started this and then you get an assistant, it's very easy to say, okay, every listing appointment I go on needs to go in here. And when I get the listing, then you need to mark that we got it. And then you could just do it by the year. Because really you have a year goal. This just breaks it down into months. So you could see if you're really on track. And then you should know that if January was a horrible, and my January tends to be down because I love Christmas, so in December I take a little more time off. So you can see that my January is always pretty, it's
Dismal.
okay. Yes, it's not as good as the rest of the months. But I also know in July, January won't matter because I'm gonna make up the difference there because it's so busy. Okay, so goals, so you guys should all enter that into the GCI calculator in your back door, and we're gonna do that one day, so I'm gonna ask you guys to prepare yours, and then we'll kind of go over them and see how we're gonna reach your goals. Like, what are your ideas to reach 3 listings a month or 3 buyers? We need to know what's your game plan. So it's very easy to say, yeah, I'm gonna close 100 deals, but you need a game plan. You're just not gonna walk out and close 100 deals. Are you gonna work as a buyer's agent? Are you going to do the open houses and try and pick up buyers that way? So just those kind of ideas that will bring you more business. Fear is huge. So be specific, have a measurable goal, make sure that it's achievable. So your first year out, you might wanna not, put your income goal as 250. You might kill it, that'd be awesome. And then just make sure that it's repeatable and that you're doing it in a timely manner. So the deadlines are important. Really stay focused, like every 30 days. We meet every week and go over ours as a team. So we sit there and say, what new listings do we have coming up? What current listings, what's going on with them? How many current buyers that we're actively working with? And then how many buyers are in like our pipeline, knowing they're not gonna buy right now, but they're gonna buy 3 to 6 months down the road. So every week we kind of go through that and see if we're on target to our 250 goal this year. So, so everybody should attend Ignite, and that's what she gave me the list of when they're gonna hold the new Ignite classes, and they're gonna be held in Canyon City this time. And they're gonna start Friday, July the 6th, it looks like. These are tentative, it looks like. So July the 6th, July 9th, July 11th, the 13th. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday until July 30th. So basically you'll commit to a month to get your business going. And I know Tia's taken it and Mariah teaches it. You teach one of the classes. So I think Tia learned a lot because she'd come back and teach us, which was awesome. So you guys should really go, and you should go more than once. I don't think you can learn everything in one round of training. But I can tell you, for all the companies I've worked with, no company lays out education like KW, and it's one of the reasons that I came over here, is I love classes, I love to learn. There's just so many people that are better than you in the business. You know, you think you're doing pretty good, and then you meet somebody else who, you know, sold 211 million in a year, and you're like, oh, okay, next goal. So it's awesome. So you guys should try and attend. Canyon's only a 30-minute drive, and when I was a new agent, I drove everywhere. Denver, Colorado Springs, everywhere. I was trying to learn everything I could because we didn't have any guidance. They basically gave you your license and said, you know, try and get your business started. There wasn't any mentoring or anything like that, so you guys are pretty blessed. And so am I, because I'm learning other things that I've never learned before. So attend Ignite, enter your goals in the calculator, and then time block. So we have lots of discussions about time blocking in our office.
That's
You
pretty.
need to recast it.
That's very pretty.
Okay. Cast.
So Jamie, when you were, you first started, you were talking about learning to appraise. You took the appraisal class.
Uh-huh.
Is that, you actually worked under an appraiser then?
No, I took the class, and then because the market was stinky, none of the appraisers were looking for any help because they
Right.
didn't have enough business as it is.
Right.
So basically, I got the license thinking that hopefully I would be able to work under somebody just to get a better education, and it didn't work out, but I got the education through the courses, so it
Okay.
made a huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think too, when you're talking to appraisers, it makes a big difference because they
You
can
understand.
hear, they can hear what you're saying,
Okay.
yeah. So this is our schedule. I'm blue, Megan's purple, Tia's green. So everything goes on this main calendar, and you can see
Fridays are crazy?
every day's crazy. Actually, yesterday was worse.
Really?
Yesterday was like, you know that time I say I'm gonna quit this job every month? Yesterday might have been it. So,
Thank you for that reality.
it's true, it is true. Last night, I was like, my husband's like, do you have a, cause I said, is there any cranberry at home? My husband knows exactly what that means. Rough day. So we schedule everything. Every single appointment I have is in the schedule. If it's a doctor's appointment, my grandson's graduation tonight, our granddaughter's birthday tomorrow, everything is time blocked, because when you get busy enough, somebody else will be taking over your schedule. You won't be doing it. So our staff has free reign of this. So if we have a new buyer calls in and Tia's available, today it doesn't look like, maybe this afternoon she might be a little available. They can say, oh great, sure, are you working with an agent? No, Tia would love to show you this house at 1 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. Get all their information and then be able to schedule Tia with a new buyer. And the same thing with me. So if somebody comes in and or calls on the phone and wants to list an appointment, a listing appointment, anybody could go on here. You don't think this is important because you're not busy, but you will, I call it fiddle fart a lot of time away if you don't time block. So lately my goal is to come in at 7 o'clock, read 10 pages of a book of the Millionaire, the Red Book.
Right.
And then, yes, I need a drink. So 10 pages a day of that, because I haven't been able to get through it. So it's quiet time, my phone's not ringing, the office phone's not ringing. So 10 pages of that. Then I make a list of everything that's a priority for the day. Like, is there an offer I have to write? Is there this, or our inspection resolution is today? Whatever that is, I try and get those done first thing in the morning, because you know how the day goes. As soon as your phone starts ringing, everything you thought you were gonna get done doesn't get done. So if you time block and time manage, if you can get those appointments so that 7 to 8 is this, 8 to 9 is this, 10 to 11 is this, by 11 you're done, you know, calling all your clients. So with T and I, we've been working on, you know, from 8 to 9, just touch base with every single client. How are you? If it's a text, if it's a phone call, however they like to communicate. I can tell you I'm not a fan of texting unless that's the only way they like to communicate. I like to build a relationship with my clients, and lots of them are my friends, and after the sale we go to lunch, we go to dinner, so it's a lot of fun. So if you really stay focused in those times, then from like 11 to 3 or whatever, you have time to either work on a new business, on your new business, to go show houses, whatever it is. That way you're not getting pulled, because it's, Mariah, you're probably suffering from that right now, right?
I am. It's a little insane.
And it's a good problem to have,
Yeah.
but it's very hard to say. Like with me, I won't even open our email box, because if I open the email box, I'm done, because I want to just start getting through it, because I like everything to be done. I hate when my email box has 200 emails. They all know, they're like, clear out the email box. So try and really set your times, and it should be consistent every day. It's a business. If you don't treat it like a business and you come in at 11 and you leave at 3, and you know, it's just not the way this business works. Until you build your business, then you can have a little bit more flexibility of when you're coming and going. But if you start with this time blocking, you'll achieve so much more very quickly. And I think what new agents tend to do is think, oh, I'll do it when I have time. If you're not doing anything, you should be on the backdoor KW trying to learn everything you can. Listen to seminars, play around with the GCI, look at what their marketing materials are, things like that. And then when Travis and I met this week, we talked about just working with other agents, like listening to what they say. So Tia will come into the room and she can't talk to me because we'll just start talking, but I'll kind of tell her what I'm doing. Okay, we're writing a new contract. This is why I put this. And I try to explain as we're going through, and I know that's not ideal, but she also can hear the way that I talk to clients, and I think that's important, because sometimes people forget they're not educated, you're educated. So when I had a lady call the other day and she wanted to list the house $20,000 over my market value. And I said, well, statistically, you know, our marketplace is selling within 2% of list price. If we go to 20,000 over, we could lose all of our first buyers because they're gonna say it's overpriced, and then we've kind of lost the new action, which is you can never get it back. New listing action, you never get back. And then just telling her, okay, let's look at the comparables that I did. Everything that I used against you is newer. And we kind of just went through the pros and cons, because it has to be their decision. Ultimately, it is their decisions, but you want to make sure they know what the marketplace is doing, because they don't know. When we have new buyers, they don't realize we're in a seller's marketplace, that there's basically 5 buyers right now for every house that's listed. So they're in a lot of competition. They don't understand why a seller might take a conventional loan over their FHA loan. You need to explain that. You need to say this is a government-backed loan. They're gonna have requirements like peeling paint, broken windows, handrails, window well covers, that a conventional buyer is not going to have to worry about, and the seller doesn't have to worry that once the appraisal's done, they're gonna have work that's gonna have to be done. So you need to educate the buyer on what is their best route. So if they're an FHA buyer, 3%, 3.5%, you need to call their lender and say, is there any way they could go conventional? They're gonna be they're gonna be a stronger buyer in this marketplace. So strategically, you need to look at those things, and we could talk about those too. You guys could give me suggestions for classes, or what you wanna learn. I don't know if I'd call them class. And then, 100% attendance to that GCI huddle, which is held at noon on, I think she said Wednesdays, 12 to 12:30 here on Wednesdays, and it's upstairs in this room.
I think it's on Mondays.
Is it Mondays?
I
Oh,
think it's
thanks for Mariah. So it's Mondays. I wrote it down, but now I can't find the
I really
paper.
think it's Mondays though.
Okay, so Mondays, you can ask Lori too. And then database, you know, this is my number one thing is database. So on this live webinar, and that's why I asked for it, is the E-Edge database management with my KW. I'm going to take this class probably a couple of times just because I need to learn how to use those in the beginning, and then just be consistent. Just keep putting your database in there, even if they're not a really good lead. I still feel like you should do that because you could send them a newsletter or something like that, and you just never know, you know, when they're ready to sell that they're gonna. And when you're first starting out, you're like, oh, I'll remember these 3 people. You will, but you won't remember them in 5 years when you're selling, you know, 30 units a year. It's much harder. And you don't want to lose touch with them because in 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 years, they're going to be selling their house again. So you want them to think of you first. And then build your presentation, your listing presentations in your buyer's book. So my staff, we have buyer's books and seller's books. And I have a lot of just market statistics in there because I feel that's like what people want to know, what's going on with the market. And then I just tell them a little bit about our team and how I think we're different than most agents and what we've been doing for years and what kind of sets us apart. And everybody has that. So it's just taking what your strengths are and communicating that to a seller or a buyer. And Megan likes to bring new buyers in, and she goes through the book with them, because what we find out is new buyers usually don't read the book. Like, we'll send it to them in PDF format, and then they go and open a credit card 3 days later. So she likes to bring them in and go over the book, so if they have any questions about the different financing options and things. So I think that's a really good idea. And then, just like I said, you need to develop and effectively communicate your value proposition, and then number of leads, and then your conversion ratio, which is key, because if you take all the leads and you don't know if you're converting 1 to 5 or 1 to 4 or 1 to 10, then it's going to be hard on your goal setting, because you don't know on every 4, you're going to get 1 out of every 4 appointments. So I'm a firm believer, like, get your business cards done, wear your name tag everywhere, go to every single class you can go to. If you have an agent you like, you can ask if you could shadow them, if they would let you shadow. I think it's really good to hear the way that experienced agents talk to people. I talked to Tony about an open house sheet, which we have in ours, like how to get your house ready to sell, because the property should be in pristine condition before you list it. Like, I'm just a firm believer there should be no deferred maintenance going on, because when a client walks up to a house and it's not ready, those are the things they can see. So a client thinks, what else that I'm not seeing have they not done anything with in the last 10 years? And it really is a concern for them. So if they walk through the house and they just see everything's in an array, buyers get really nervous about that. So all about prepping the house and getting it ready for photos and things like that. And I do a 2-step listing appointment. One is that initial appointment where I go through and tell them what I would need them to do before the photographer gets there. go over our value proposition, and then answer any questions that they have. And then I do their market analysis, and then we have a second conversation. So, I think that was everything in the 30, 60, 90, or the 30 out of the 30, 60, 90. What other questions do you guys have for me? Everybody's doing it. Has everybody signed up for Ignite?
Already done it with.
Tia?
Great
It was
class,
good.
just great class. Yeah, you've done it, haven't you?
A bold, which
Yeah,
they
bold
say,
with whoa,
whoa.
but Ignite on
But-
steroids.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I did it.
I've taken Ignite, I wanna say 4 times or
Good.
so. Cool. I believe in the mountain theory, so you kinda learn
Yeah,
like
I think
this,
you're
and
right.
what you need is what you pick out of it. So
Maybe do
even if
Canyon
you,
City again?
even if you've taken it, I
Yeah.
recommend you do, cause the first time it's just like, what?
If we can get a couple of us to go to
You're
Canyon
overwhelmed,
City, we
yeah.
can carpool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be great.
And I think too, the great idea about getting out of town is you're building relationships with other agents. So they may not sell in Pueblo, and you may not sell in Canyon. I don't sell in Canyon. I refer everything. I refer everything in Springs. I refer everything east, even though I know Farm and Ranch. I'm not driving to Fowler to sell a ranch, even though I might love these people. So, I would refer it out. So doing that is a great way to build your business by referrals. And Rich had a question on how referrals work, but he's not here, so we'll wait till he comes because I'm not exactly sure what the question is on referrals. But it's a great way to build your business and meet people. So I always tell new agents, try to know the people that you're working with. Like I worked with Brandon a couple of times before I ever met him. And it's so funny because then when you see him, you're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. On the phone, or they'll have a real tiny voice and they walk in and they're 6 foot
6'5",
tall.
yeah.
Yeah. So I always try and build those relationships because those are people, if you're in this business a long time, that you're going to be working with year in and year out. So, the deals get stressful, but realize it's not you against the other agent. It's you guys trying to see what the seller needs, representing the seller or the buyer, but try not to be aggressive or, there's a difference between negotiation and being aggressive. And if you ruin those relationships early on, they're very hard to get back. And, and I know new agents sometimes don't know how to negotiate, so they yell or they get worked up instead of really like, okay, what's the problem and how we're gonna fix it. So I always tell people, I just overcome the objection. That's the way that my mindset is not to just get wound up in the whole deal, but how are we gonna resolve it so that it's a win-win situation. So as far as coaching one-on-one, Travis, I asked about that. It'd be something that you'd have to sign up with either Brandon or Tony with. And I don't know if it'd be weekly coaching or not, but I did ask about that. And they said to contact one of them and they would have something set up. What about you, Mariah? Do you still do coaching?
I do. I still have a few people, and I still have a couple people that are left in the original mentorship, which they kind of did away with, but we were already under contract for it, so.
Sure. So
I got like a little bit of everything.
good. Makes you well-rounded. Yeah. And then you guys can give me any suggestions on what you need out of the class, because I'm trying to kind of hit highs and lows in what I do, and honestly, I'm learning all the KW stuff as you're learning it. So I've been playing on the, that's what I do on the weekends, is kind of go through the back door and see what's going on there and how I can get better. I definitely need to get to the E-Edge class. I've tried to do it online and I can't figure it out, so I'm gonna take my laptop and get his class that's live. So what else? What else do you need?
Well, I have a question about like, I have lots listed in Pueblo West,
Uh-huh.
so someone called and he said, you know, would they take so much, and so then I messaged my sellers and they said, yeah, so I drew up the offer and everything, sent it over, and, well, then in the meantime, and then the next morning, the contract was ready for signature, he goes, oh, I'll sign it when I get off work. Well, an offer came in, and I says, well, now I have two offers, I'm gonna present both of them. He goes, no, we had a verbal, you know, that they would take that, and I go, well, I have to present all offers, and guess who they chose? Well, chose a better offer, and it wasn't his, and I gave him the opportunity. I said, another offer's coming in, do you wanna change that?
Yeah.
You know, how do you handle that? I said, I have to present both of them. I mean,
Just
he
like
could have
that.
signed, and I could afford it, and had him sign it, and.
Yep. Well, verbal's not a contract in Colorado, so that's why I don't really like verbal contracts. But I know on land,
Yeah.
it's a different kind of a little beast. But I always tell people they may accept it, but the way that our marketplace is going, I would come in here and sign it right away if that's what you want. And regardless of even if it's under contract, you still have to present every offer. So if it's under contract, you have to go to if you get an offer, you have to present it. And then that gives the seller the option to say, like in a house listing, if we're coming up on inspection and we have another offer, they don't have to do anything. They can just say, I'm not doing anything, and let the first one go. You know, if the buyer needs things that are done, it's just strategic on the seller's part to get the most money they can.
So could I, like, counter for the second place if they wanted to?
A backup offer?
Yeah.
Sure.
With that, so,
So what I would do is,
rejected it 'cause the offer, you know.
so you could say, would you like to be in backup position? And if they said yes, then you could write a backup offer just with the verbiage, you know, 2 days after. And then I always rewrite it once, if the first one fails, I actually put dates in there
Okay.
so everybody knows what to expect. But in that backup offer, you could have them sign that, and then literally it would not even go back to the MLS. It would go straight from that first buyer to that second buyer, which is, you know, and you may want to consider for houses too, because this marketplace, a lot of deals are failing. And if you have that backup offer, they may go right into first position without having to compete. And what's the worst that can happen? They still look for a house and they rescind their backup offer. That's,
I just had a backup offer accepted this morning.
yeah,
That I wrote, cause I'm like, we're not finding, there's not, I've asked everyone under the sun for an Altamira home. You know, so
Yep.
let's start hitting the backups.
yeah.
And you're right, you know, my client was like, should we offer more? I was like, why would you?
Right.
I'm like, why would you? We're not really,
We're
we
not
don't have
competing. Right.
We're not,
Right.
we don't have competition
Yeah.
right now.
And usually when that first deal fails, the seller's really thrilled that there's already a second one. They're not gonna have to get their house ready to show. They're not gonna be out of their house for a couple of days. So it's really a great idea, especially if they love the home, because nothing stops them from going to look at other houses. And if they found something, they could rescind their offer. But a lot of our buyers have been looking for months because there's no inventory. So why not write a backup offer? I mean, you don't really have anything to lose, and at least you know, if it does fail, you go straight into first position. So
Then I do earnest money if you do like after.
I just
3
do
days.
3 days after first deal fails.
So then you would say to the backup offer, well, let's say, I'm
Go
trying to
ahead.
play devil's advocate here. Yeah, I want to be backup offer, but in the meantime, I found this one that I really fell in love with.
My additional provisions covers it, so in my additional provisions say buyer may terminate on or before notification.
Okay.
And, in CTME, Damian Cox has a clause in there for us
Mhm.
for backup offers.
Okay.
So, just be cautious, cause it's really seller stacked on that backup clause that he
Uh-huh.
has. So, in my case, I just kinda shortened the last part of it, cause I was like, yeah, that doesn't apply.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no, but the rest of it does.
Okay.
Great. So you rescind your offer, you rescind your backup, just say that, you know, you no longer want to be held in backup position. So it's not It's not complicated. It's actually a good, if they love the house, I tell people, it won't hurt to write a backup offer. A lot of times buyers don't want to because they think they're committed to not looking anymore, but they're not. They can
Okay.
continue to look, and if they do find something more they love, then,
Just more cards on the table. Yeah.
yep, just more options.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Another one, getting back to, when you coach your sellers about decluttering and cleaning and doing all this, what happens if they think they've done enough, that's the word.
You know what, Jamie, someone said something, Margie, it was Margie.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you remember?
You're
this?
gonna be moving anyways, get started on it.
Yeah, and then she also said, have you ever been to a model home?
So,
She said, go to a model home and that's how your house should look.
yeah, I'm
Because
pretty,
sometimes people think-
yeah, my personality's pretty black and white, so when people hire me, I think they just want me to give them my honest opinion, and so I do. And yet there's a nice way to do it. So what I'll do is actually start walking in the house with them and saying, all these rugs need to be removed. If I see dirty walls, I just say, buyer's impression, their first impression of the house is going to be huge in your case, and for getting the most money out of your property, there can't be any deferred maintenance is what I call it. And then I kind of just walk through and I say, like the walls are really important, washing down the cabinets, because everybody grabs their cabinet in the same area and it's the oils off of your hands. So in your mind, when you're living there, it's not a big deal because it's your cabinets. But to a new buyer, it's a huge deal. So I try and just point them out nicely. I also tell people if I can smell their dog, their cat, or pets, or smoking. Because they can't smell it. They can't smell their own dog or cat, and that's fine, we don't expect them to, but we don't want a buyer to smell their dog or cat. And what I tell people is, not everybody loves cats, not everybody loves dogs, not everybody loves turtles and all those other things. So what you don't wanna do is, they hit the door and say, I smell a cat, and I'm out, they're done, the showing's over. So we don't want that, and I just explain to them in that way, and you have to say my experience with buyers is this: if they smell a cat, they smell a dog. I ask my buyers to put their dog food away, their dog beds. I think that buyer should never know they even have pets until they read that seller's property disclosure. And how many houses have you been to, the dog is trying to break down the back door while you're trying to show the house and they're barking the whole time. The buyer can't even focus on the property. And that's what you need to say. They're gonna be more focused on your dog trying to get in than they are on how great your living room looks. And then when I tell them the things they need to do, I also tell them everything that looks great. Hey, I love this fireplace. I love the colors that you have on the couch. I think maybe you can remove some of those things. No personal photos, because I'm the worst. When I see a wedding photo, I love going to look at wedding photos. They're my favorite. So if somebody has a wedding photo, I'm like, boom, right there. So I just love them. So, but then what happened is I didn't look at the main level. I didn't look if there was half a bath somewhere because I was too busy looking at the photos. So that's kind of how I tell people. And then online, the more you reduce clutter, the bigger your home looks to a potential buyer. And that's what you want. That house should feel spacious no matter how big or small it is. So, and that's what a new buyer wants. A new buyer wants to see their items in the house, not the current seller. And just like Tia said, we just tell them start packing. Everything you're gonna take with you, start packing and loading it in the garage, because nobody cares if the garage is a mess. They just wanna know if their car or truck fit. So I tell them pack all of your extra stuff in the garage, just let them be able to walk into the garage. And just as I go through, I'm like, you might wanna move this piece of furniture, or you might wanna do this or that. And I tell them before photos, everything's gone. They don't wanna see your toothbrush, they don't wanna see, sometimes I even make them take down their towels, because to me, towels sometimes don't photograph very well. you don't really see the bathroom, you see like whatever's on there, so I tell them to take down their towels. I have them pull up all their rugs, like the bath rugs, because I want them, the buyer, to be able to see if it's tile floor or a laminate floor. So it's just little things like that. And it's just doing it in a nice way, like you can't have your underwear out when people are walking through your property.
You can't have the nudie
I like the
magazine
look on
stacked
your-
in the bathroom.
That's right.
Talk about mine.
So,
Oh. Okay, too much information,
Yeah.
honey.
so, yeah.
Too high.
Yeah, open house and she has her mom.
Yeah, and some of that, yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
wow,
You don't think you have to,
yeah.
that's just.
But you do, I mean,
know.
it's crazy, but they really, because to them, that might be clean, but to a potential buyer, it's not. I mean, and we saw a lot of houses that day, and I was a little disappointed, because for me, your time is valuable, so if they're not willing to take their time into getting their house ready for you to sell, why are you giving up your weekends?
Don't you do that when you initially sit down with them and say, how motivated are you to sell your house from 1 to 10? Does that kind of,
If that's your script, you can, yeah. I don't, I walk in like I'm gonna get it, and this is what I need you to do for me to sell it. I figured if they weren't a 10, I wouldn't be there, especially in this market. Because normally, if they're not gonna sell right away, they'll tell you when they call.
okay.
And then I tell them when you're closer to ready to list, give me a call, yeah. I usually tell them when they're about 6 weeks out. Because there's no reason to go see a house now if we're not selling until next year, because the market's gonna be totally different next year. But I tell them exactly, I explain my process, which is our first appointment is just for us to meet, and me to get a good eye on what's going on with your property. You know, do you have granite, do you have hardwood, do you have tile, do you have vaulted ceilings? All those things are very important to us when we're doing a market analysis, because that adds value to your property. And I say, why don't you walk me through the house and tell me everything that you've done since you've lived here? Because then that gives you a chance to see, okay, did they take care of the roof? Did they already have the hot water heater? Because if they're going through the house and saying nothing, you know then, okay, we better look, maybe the hot water heater's original. So that you kind of have a plan. You know, if your hot water heater's over 15 years old, the buyer might need it to be replaced because it's past its life expectancy. Sellers don't know that. They have no idea what the life expectancy of a hot water heater is. Neither did I until I got in real estate. So we just want to educate them as we're walking through. And then I say, you know, the paint color, because colored rooms to me, especially if every room is a different color, I ask them to neutralize it, because in photography, sometimes they look terrible, you know, and if you don't catch them on the photos, you're done. It's like that dating site. They don't look good, you just keep swiping. And that is exactly how, you know, looking at houses is. It's very easy just to let it go.
Real estate is like Tinder, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, but when you tell that to your seller, how true is that? How many times have they looked on something on the internet and they blazed through it because it didn't look very good? And that's what you need to tell them, is we need these photos to be amazing. And this house has to look as large as it can in those photos and as clean as it can. And I do have a lot of people, if the house is dirty, my experience with buyers is they won't buy it. They do not want to clean somebody else's mess, because they feel like this is the cleanest this house will ever be to that seller. So the buyer feels, I'm gonna buy the house and then have to be cleaning somebody else's walls. So it's just saying it in a nice way, and it's not, and always put it as, my experience with buyers is this. You're not lying, it's the truth, that you've heard it. So I just tell them that, because they've never worked with buyers. They won't even know what the buyer says. How many feedbacks do you get that says it's a nice house, and they won't put, it smells like dog, it smells like smoke. So on my feedback, you'll see I always put what I liked first, Like if the buyer loved the living room or the hardwood floors or the fireplace, I put the buyer loved this. They could smell your cat, you know, you may wanna repaint the rooms or something like that in it, try and be nice and tactful, because you don't wanna, you know, if you give bad feedback, then the agent's like, wow, they could have put that a little more nicely. Especially to a seller, that's their home. They love their home, and you know, it's a fine line to walk, but I think if they're really wanting to sell it and you say it in the right way, they're open. I've never had somebody say, no, I'm not cleaning my house and I'm not painting it. Because you could paint it now and we could sell it in 3 days, or you could wait until the buyer asks you to paint it.